From time to time in my life, I've been a New Yorker and discovered that I have another person here from Manhattan and maybe even from the same neighborhood. Seth Ginsberg, you've been pretty amazing in creating a community and a foundation. Can you start by telling us that?
Sure. Before I even do that, Denise, I just want to extend a heartfelt thanks on behalf of the panelists, and I know everybody here, for everything that you've done to make all of this happen. And so being here is a real thrill. So thank you. Really impressive. So by way of background, my name is Seth Ginsberg, and I was diagnosed with a form of arthritis called spondyloarthropathy when I was 13. I'm born and raised in New York, and when I went away to college, I was just 18 years old, and I quickly realized the need for education and support. And I wanted to bring people together in a positive environment where we could share strength and experience, and I didn't really want to feel alone anymore. This being the late 90s, there was something called the internet that was now upon us. I got out of bed, I emailed my former internship boss, and in one sentence I said, I really want to find a way to bring people together in a fun and interesting way. And that next morning, we created CreakyJoints, which is the gathering point and is everything arthritis, reaching everybody with the more than 200 forms of arthritis and providing education and understanding, support and coping, advocacy to overcome barriers to care, and fourth and finally, research, or as we call it, the hunt for the truth. And today, CreakyJoints is a part of the nonprofit Global Healthy Living Foundation, GHLF, which is more disease agnostic and focuses on nurturing collaborative advocacy among all different kinds of chronic disease communities, as well as helping to improve access to care.
So this is where, up until now, actually most of today, we've really been speaking to activities that would probably occur in the departments of pharma that relate to hospitals and that relate to communication and marketing. I want to now get into the real clinical research aspect. So can you tell us about the partnerships that you have in clinical research?
Sure, and this is a relatively new frontier for us, but a very exciting one. I'm very proud to say that I am the principal investigator of a PCORI contract to build a patient-powered research network. And for those of you not familiar with PCORI, it is the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute that was created in 2010 in the US out of the Affordable Care Act. About $1 billion set aside to effectively create comparative effectiveness research utilizing technology. And our patient-powered research network through CreakyJoints in the next 18 months, God willing, will effectively allow patients with rheumatoid arthritis and other forms of systemic autoimmune diseases to, through active and passive data collection methods, paint a much more vivid picture of what life is like living with chronic diseases like rheumatoid arthritis.
Right. Ben, would you send a link so people can link to PCORI?
Yep.
Yeah.
At PCORI.
Yeah.
For sure. And we're thrilled. I mean, this is an unbelievable opportunity for us because what we're doing is harnessing the power, the vast power of the internet and the long-reaching arms of social media. And just as an aside, on my way here from New York to Paris the other day, before I left, asked our data scientist, Noam, if he could just pull two quick data sets for me. One, year-to-date 2014, what's our reach on social media? And two, year-to-date 2014, what's our engagement? And the numbers were staggering. Our reach so far this year has been 288 million, and our engagement are 28 million unique conversations that we've hosted primarily through the CreakyJoints Facebook page. So
that deserves it.
And we have a poster, actually, that analyzes some of that data that we've presented here today, and thank you for the opportunity to do that. And, of course, my colleague, Ben, our Director of Patient-Centered Research, for his efforts on that. But basically, how do we harness all of these conversations and activity and a hive of activity and validate it with meaningful and credible research that can be applied to improving health outcomes? And this is our new frontier, and it's very exciting, and it includes collaboration with all kinds of stakeholders, especially manufacturers, people interested in product development, because because of our opportunity now through this Picori project and other research initiatives, we no longer can do research or have to do research in a vacuum, right? This is how research is typically done. We don't know anything about the study. We don't know its name. We don't have a clue. We just show up to our doctor's office. Well, enter stage left, CreakyJoints and our activities. Now we can understand the wants as well as the needs of the patients living with these types of arthritis. And so we're very excited to share that, not just with the manufacturers, but with the world, with governments, with payers.
You're on your way to EULAR, right? And there's somebody named Carlo here, a doctor, a rheumatologist from Colombia, who's on his way there. What are you going to do at EULAR?
So at EULAR, I plan to ask everybody that I'm going to meet there a simple question. What information would you want as a rheumatologist that could help you treat us patients better? What data set would make life better as a physician treating those of us with lifelong systemic chronic diseases like RA that you could incorporate into your treatment? And then I plan to use technology to engineer a way to get that information. Whereas I think today, and we were just talking about this with Larry a little earlier, MedX, I think we try to use technology and fit a square peg into a round hole, and it doesn't necessarily equate to success. Whereas if we understand the wants and the needs and where it would be applied, then engineering the technology, I hope, will be a lot easier.
So you're asking the physicians what data they need. I assume you're asking the patients also what they want to know, no?
We're going to definitely ask the patients what they want to know. And this is another novel part of what we're doing at CreakyJoints, which is the creation of what's called a patient research governor group, which is an 11-patient panel that will initiate and then drive the research projects that we will undertake with CreakyJoints. So it's research for patients, by patients, and of course about patients that we're really excited to implement.
So will you commit to me right here on this stage to write an article that we'll put on our blog about how this works? Because I sense that in the audience there are many people who aren't in the US who would like to reproduce your model.
And we're very excited to export our best practices and our learnings all around the world. We engage with countries, and it's a small world. And the FDA and the Food and Drug Administration is very different than the TGA or the Therapeutic Goods Administration in Australia, for example, and here in the EU, of course. And so one size will not fit all, but we will find the ways to...
Right, it's 2 levels. I think people would like to know what you've been learning in the rheumatology area, but they'd like to know about how to organize this to collect patient data, as we also saw yesterday with Dr. John Hickson's POEM study for epilepsy, how to collect patient data in a way that it can be properly used.
Definitely. And then I think just a quick word to, I know there are a lot of pharma folks here today and in the audience and in the Twitterverse. And by the way, this brings new meaning to talking behind someone's back, for the record. Okay. Anyway, I think pharma and all that they do and all that you do is so valuable and so important. It's what has physically gotten me here and the thousands of our members. So our appreciation runs way deep. However, when big companies try to talk to people, they typically don't realize that they're actually just people. And I think HIPAA and a lot of other regulatory issues prevent companies like manufacturers from understanding who the humans are on the other end of their therapies or their development processes. And we at CreakyJoints and our collaborators and many other groups, I hope, can paint a more full and vivid picture of who the humans are behind the conditions so that we can understand the wants and then the needs and hopefully ensure success for outcomes.
You have a natural talent for speaking. That was a great conclusion.